Excuse me, could you just hold still for a second? Thank you. Have a nice day. Hey, it's Zadie and you're watching Flytte Kartina. As you can see, today I'm going to be doing a movie review which does not spoil the movie for Men in Black International. Since this is a non-spoiler movie review, I'm going to give you the first half, which is dedicated to the rating of the movie and why I was rated that way, and the second half is actually my thoughts on the movie without spoiling anything relating to the plot. Men in Black International stars Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth, two Marvel co-stars actually, who team up together in this movie for an international take on the Men in Black franchise. Hence the name Men in Black International for the title of the movie. This movie is rated PG-13 for sci-fi action, some language throughout, and suggestive material. Okay, so we've got our three categories, and it's all under the umbrella of a PG-13 rating. For those of you who don't know, PG-13 means that you should probably take your 13-year-old but not take anybody under 13. That's kind of the general rule for things. So the first part of this PG-13 rating is that it is sci-fi action. There's definitely sci-fi action. There's not a lot of sci-fi violence, but there's a lot of action involved, a lot of near-death situations, but not exactly violence. Like, there's no actual killing of anything or alien. It's kind of like a mild superhero movie where the action is relating to the plot and it's not unnecessary action. We're gonna move on to some language, and it didn't really affect me. Obviously there was a couple of words here and there that were very standout-ish and I noticed them a lot, but most of all the language wasn't super harsh or vile in terms of just being there, and since it's in the rating, I would expect a little bit more out of a PG-13 movie, but they didn't take it very far. Now we're going to move on to the suggestive material, and there's one scene that I can think of that has the suggestive material in it that it's probably describing, and it's just basically all subjective and all seen through visuals. There's nothing seen like further past what you would see in a public setting. And then there's another scene. In order for a man to stay alive, he needs to sleep with another woman, and this woman is an alien, so you can imagine how things goes. But we don't see anything because it's a PG-13 movie. It doesn't go any farther than the wake-up scene that you see. So I'm gonna pull up the frequency chart and rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10 on how frequent these elements were in this movie. And it's gonna be pretty low on the chart. I'm gonna say it's about a 3 or a 4. Kind of in the middle, but leaning towards the lighter side a little bit more. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, I'm gonna pull out my magical scale of movies, which rates a movie on a scale of Lego Movie 2 to Deadpool on how appropriate this movie is for younger audiences. I'm gonna say it's also on the lighter side because it's so action-packed. It's probably about a 5, which is Night at the Museum. So if you've seen the elements in Night at the Museum, then you'll know what the elements kind of will be displayed in MIB International. This isn't hardcore evidence that it's a kid-friendly movie, it's just that it's more kid-friendly than a lot of PG-13 movies out there. Now that we're done with all of the ratings, I'm going to tell you what I thought of the movie, and also at the end I'm going to tell you whether I would see it in the theaters, buy it, or rent it. So this movie is very interesting. I was wondering if they were going to completely ruin the franchise with this movie, making an international movie with 2 Marvel co-stars, and just kind of be a moneymaker. Basically all of the Disney animated sequels that have happened. Not all of them, but most of them. And it kind of is to a certain extent, but most of what I think of this movie is it was a really fun movie, and it really emanated the right amount of energy that had from the previous MIB movies. I was wondering why Agent J and Agent K didn't make an appearance for the last part of the movie, at least just a small appearance, because we have Agent O there and she's pretty great and in this movie, and I really liked her in it, but like I wanted to see a little bit more homage to the previous movies. It seemed like they didn't really appreciate the first trilogy that came out. But that's just me talking, and I'm sure that's not what they were trying to convey, but it just seemed like they weren't really giving homage to the original as much as I think they could have. I think the characters had good balance to them. There was a couple of characters that I was like, that's not really, you're kind of useless and a plot device. The chemistry between Agent M and Agent H is kind of wonky at best. They don't really mix very well. I think they have the same sense of humor, which kind of doesn't really do very much for it. They did a reverse on the original Men in Black where the rookie was the loose like, I'll just wing it sort of guy, and the experienced agent was more of the uptight. And they flipped that so that the rookie was uptight and then the experienced agent was looser and more improv-y in his agenting style. And there are certain movies in which this kind of dynamic works, but in this movie it doesn't as much. Chris Hemsworth is an amazing actor and he's really good at comedy and his comedic timing is really good. But in this movie it seemed like he was given like really bad material to work with and he just had to go with it. And then there are other characters who are there, two of which are in the same scene together and they don't mean anything. The one character that I did enjoy was this little alien guy that you've seen in like promotion little material where his name is Pawnee. He's really cute and I think he's really, really funny. And the scenes that he was in with Agent M and Agent H were really funny to watch and interesting to just see. Now let's talk about the plot a little bit. And the plot was kind of wonky. It's basically follows the Men in Black actual like formula of doing things. They have to find something and then they gotta go get it. And then the antagonists of this, which is interesting, there were two guys who are not actors. They're very good at dancing because that is what they do professionally, but acting wise they're basically faces for whatever creature that is behind them. There's another antagonist who doesn't really do very much and she's in like 2.5 scenes, which at most, and like it's just yeah. They also tried to make it a little bit more meaningful, which is like, you know, generating a backstory for some of these characters, and I feel like they just didn't have time to develop them and they didn't really have space to develop them with all the other stuff that they wanted to do in this movie. I can't complain about the action scenes because they were really fun and lively and interesting for me to watch. Basically what I expected out of this movie is what I got. I wanted some cool action scenes and to see some new content from the MIB franchise. And it's a really exciting movie, and if you see it, it's kind of worth it to go and see it. And so to wrap this video up, I am going to tell you whether I would see this movie in theaters, buy it, or rent it. And if I had to watch one, I would rent it and do a marathon with all of the Men in Black movies. So the question for this week is, what is your guys' favorite Men in Black movie? Let me know in the comments down below, but before you do that, help me out, help this channel out, help this video out by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and then ring that bell so that you are one of the first people to know when I post a video next. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great random Thursday. I will see you on the other side of the screen. Bye!